Listeners everywhere, welcome to The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, the weekly fix for your screen addiction and a trusted source for discussion of all things film and television. Please keep in mind that for the purposes of this podcast, Joel and Ryan are not acting as journalists, but rather fellow moving picture enthusiasts. All of their opinions should be taken as such. Also, please be warned that while Joel and Ryan may seem like petulant children, they are, in fact, adults who may occasionally use adult language. While they promise to bleep out all the worst words, it's a good bet you will still understand what they were saying. And now, with no further ado, here's Joel and Ryan.
Welcome to the movie show with Joel and Ryan. We have come in peace. We are here because we need your help, dear listener. We need your help to survive. So just by listening to this, you sort of helped us already, and we're sort of there. So hey, welcome to the movie show with Joel and Ryan. I'm Joel.
And I'm Ryan.
And I'm Michael. Hi.
And Michael's here. Yoo-hoo! Michael is joining us from his apartment. Brand new apartment, a condo in sunny Los Angeles. A big
Hollywood.
move. Hollywood. You move down the hall.
Yeah.
And all right. So welcome to our special V episode 1 of our V. Absolute. It's delicious. It's going to be a super fun time. But before that, how you doing, Michael? How are things? We're so happy that you're joining us.
I'm excited to be here because, as you both know, this is a very important pop culture topic for me.
Right.
My love for this franchise runs very deep. So when this came up, I said, I will need to be on this. I don't think there was any option for you to say no. So,
there wasn't really like a
never a consideration. That
it wasn't. Hey, I wonder if Michael should join us. I believe you said no. I will be joining.
I will.
Yeah. All right. Anything? But do we just want to jump right in? Should we just jump right in and get into this? Good old
little context to what V is and when it came out, but we should jump right in. This is going to be a doozy.
Mm-hmm. And I sort of like, I haven't even thought of any sort of pithy beginning or anything because I'm just like, we just got to jump right in. We got a lot to talk about because it's a good old V deep dive.
Ooh.
Do a deep dive.
Deep dive. Deep dive.
I have to do a deep dive.
Deep dive. Deep dive.
I have to do a deep dive.
Deep dive. Deep dive. Deep dive.
I haven't heard that in a while.
It has been a while.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I've ever been on an episode with a deep dive. Have I? I've done a lot of lists. Jaws, you're right.
Jaws was a deep dive. Yep.
That's true. Okay.
But that's the one that springs immediately to mind. But
yep. So you're a giant liar, and for that, you're done.
Fiss you.
All right. So the original miniseries, of course, comes out in 1983. Fresh on the heels of or not on the heels, but fresh in the
grand tradition of Roots and the Thornbirds, and North and South. We give you the Alien Invasion Show, brought to you by the guy Kenneth Johnson. He's a TV veteran, but he's probably most famous for the Bill Bixby Incredible Hulk show.
Bionic Woman.
That was him basically he was in charge of that show, that storytelling. So he knew all the local California locations where they shot everything at the time, almost all of which are used in V at some point.
Yeah.
And including the old MASH sets and stuff like that. Like he was like really knew what he was doing in terms of economy of storytelling. And he had a sort of grand vision for this. What he wanted to tell was the story of the rise of the Third Reich. Just straight up, although Winds of War had done that a couple of years pretty well on its own. And the new hip hot thing was spaceships and aliens and stuff. And so he devised this idea that he could tell that story using allegory in the context of these alien visitors from another planet who eventually turn our lives into a fascist state that we have to live under and resist against. And it's a pretty ingenious idea. You can see the seams stretching in places. You can see the strings a lot when you watch it, but the idea is really strong and compelling, and the design ideas that are integrated into it because of it is amazing. And watching, America fall into, martial law and stuff, it's really powerful stuff. So we showed up, I think all of us, we were all whatever 9 through 11 years old or something when it came out, for the spaceships, and you knew there was going to be something spooky about it. But that's the other thing that they do so brilliantly in it. Before we just go through it deep dive style, blow by blow, the general thing I'll say about it is that it plays like a general audience's experience, even though when we talk about this stuff in specifics, it's really heavy stuff when you say it out loud. That's the fun part about deep dives, is that we go through them and we just say what happens. And sometimes when you say it out loud, you're like, man, that's what happened. That happened at 8:30 on a whatever Tuesday night or whatever on TV. Right. That's amazing. I was in a Little League baseball game right before V and watched the first episode in V on the floor in front of the TV in my baseball uniform. When the game was over, I didn't shake hands. I didn't get a refreshing soft drink. I booked off the field and ran full speed to get to my house so that I wouldn't miss a second of V. And I got there with about 8 minutes to spare. But
I think the ad campaign NBC ran to kind of bring it. It was kind of reminiscent of, I guess, like The Omen. When The Omen came out, they had all those warnings and all this shit. But their ad campaign was, a little dorky, nerdy 9-year-old at that time. I was sold. Like, this is something that I'm going to want to see. And of course, it became an obsession. So
I do. I love that. They even did. I was reading that they even put up just put up the regular posters. We're here. We are your friends, and they just put them up in the subway.
Yeah, if you follow us on Facebook, we posted those posters.
Yeah, all those posters. Yeah, and they would just
all these visitor propaganda posters.
Yeah, and they just put them up, and
right
then
before it aired,
later,
they went around and
spray painted V. And it's so good. Love it. Little guerrilla marketing campaign.
It's very clever. And created a ton of interest. It was some people love it, some people make fun of it, but there's no question that V the miniseries was a massive hit at the time.
Yeah. And
big May sweeps, just everybody. That's all anyone talked about all summer.
Well, it's my revisit this week. Obviously, we'll discuss more in depth, but I was impressed how amazingly well it is held up. Because the last time I probably revisited, I want to say it was at least 12 years ago, because I'll randomly kind of like, oh, I'm ready for this and take another look. And I'm like, man.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It held up really good. One real quick macro thing though, before we again deep dive into it. I've always kind of subscribed to that notion. I've heard some scientists talk about it. If we wanted to unify we wanted to unify humanity and do away with the, you know, the quote unquote petty squabbles between nations and stuff. It would be to acknowledge aliens, that aliens exist, that aliens have visited, because, you know, it would be the one big unifying thing is like, it would be, you know, humans versus aliens. And that's one of the cool things about V, is that isn't the case. It is, you know, and maybe it's because in this case, the aliens, you know, they look like us. But you know, but yeah, we see that.
But we take our ambitions and our grudges and all that stuff that we've got piled up over years right into that situation. It's true. The show does go out of its way to demonstrate that time and time again.
Well, it's interesting, the concept and what you're just talking about, that it doesn't unite these characters. I mean, sort of, but
it sort of does. It just unites a bunch of disparate characters,
right? But not humanity in general. And it's like, that's a Romero thing through and through. It's like everything that happens and goes wrong in these zombie movies is because these people can't communicate and come together and make a plan. Right. And I think that's, you know, that's the same thing here, even though we do, but just not as a complete whole. Yep. And I think that's one of the, it makes it not as a child that I would have recognized that, but it makes it like, wow, we're screwed. It's like,
yeah. Yep, indeed. All right, so let's jump into it. Obviously, one of the things that we all love is the opening logo, that, you know, the spray paint dripping V that fades in on black, and of course the dedication, dedicated to the freedom fighters, past, present, and future.
So you won't like that. If you're a big Law and Order fan, you're not going to really like that.
Right.
Because it's all about the resistance, baby.
Yeah. And it's, you know, and I think the fact, you know, obviously it's not an accident that we open in El Salvador with Mike and Tony filming and getting footage of freedom fighters in El Salvador.
Yeah, they're a news production team. It's sort of weird because neither of them is in front of camera talent. They just go around gathering stuff.
Yeah.
Mike is a cameraman, and his sidekick Tony is the audio guy.
Mike sure could be on camera.
He sure could be.
Oh.
He'd have to put a couple more buttons together, I think, before they let him on camera.
Yeah.
For the news. But they're covering the resistance movement down in El Salvador, fighting against the communists there. I think at the time, forgive me if my 83 like El Salvador politics aren't totally in line. But,
damn it, Ryan!
But it's this really fun sequence that's repeated later in the show very cleverly.
Yes.
So it's you know, their interview. He's shouting out questions from behind the camera, and this badass resistance guy's talking about this little skirmish that they've just been involved in. And then the helicopters of the reigning government descend on them, and it's really very cinematic and fantastic action sequence.
It is. It's a powerful way, and like we said a minute ago, it holds up, man. It's like, okay, I'm watching it this week. I'm like, this is really exciting, you know?
And yeah, I could use a couple less Tony wisecracks throughout. Once or twice it'd be cool if he just said something serious. But with respect to Tony, whom I adore, it's just, you know, sometimes it's kind of like watching one of the J.J. Abrams Star Wars movies where it's just 2 of these 6 gags would have been enough. They work. You don't need so many of them. It feels like overkill. And that's a little bit with establishing his character, but
yeah, I mean,
funny. He's got some zingers.
Well, he establishes the rapport between them. I think I never, just watching it this week, it didn't stand out to me that it was too much. Like, I guess I was just fully engaged, and it's
very entertaining. It's very entertaining. And there's something very big action movie like about somebody making jokes constantly while gunfire is raining down on them. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm teasing him. I'm only saying that, you know, for a little realism's sake. Yeah. But that's not what this sequence wants. That's the funny trick, is that this is the realistic action sequence, and the whole thing, really, you don't get another one. All the rest of it's rather fantastical. And it's interrupted rudely by this giant mothership coming over the horizon, which saves their lives momentarily, of course. Yeah. But it's just, they just stare at it, and Mike puts the camera up on his shoulder and starts shooting it. And I think he unbuttons another button there. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. I don't know.
That was per my request. This calls
for 4 buttons.
Yeah. He finds the breeze. He finds the breeze perfectly to.
He's still got some disco era fashion qualities. That's all I'm saying for 1983. You do not see another single character wearing their shirts like that and anywhere else in the show.
And the show is poorer for it, in my opinion. I mean,
but the Beastmaster is stacked. You know, Mark.
You can't offer up that kind of unbuttoned gloriousness unless you're Mark Singer. It doesn't. No one else is going to sell that. Maybe Martin. For my taste, but
I was gonna say maybe it would have been something different. It was like if the UN leader comes out and says, you know, we're now going to hear from their supreme commander. Here's John, and Richard Hurd comes sauntering out. Hey,
full chest in awe.
Yeah,
don't get ahead of yourself.
Anyway.
Real quick, Mark Singer. Perfect, right? I mean, Mark's not the best actor in the world, but he's this perfect. He's really, really we were all blessed that they got him for this, because he's just he has this sort of stolid seriousness about him mixed with this very confident swagger.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll go back to Beastmaster, which I'm a huge fan about. We won't sidetrack into Beastmaster, but same thing. That guy, he's got this wink and twinkle in his eye, but when it comes time to deal with this absurd craziness of the story, he's kind of all focus and all serious about it, like as a performer, maybe not as a character all the time. But that's exactly what this needs. It's kind of fantastic in that way.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about his chemistry with various others, but with Tony right off the bat, I mean, they are a lived-in team that is here to kick ass, and we're already excited to following their story.
Not jumping ahead too much, but it's that establishment is important later for a scene that I was shocked that I guess forgotten. Yeah, and I'm like, wow, that was played beautifully. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, and then and then of course after Mike and Tony
played by Evan Kim. Just don't know if we'll get to the roll call later. So as we bring these people up, we'll try and give them their little shout outs.
Right. Evan Kim, and he's
a really, really, really good, mostly television actor.
So then we switch over to. I'm sorry, I gotta in order to read my notes here.
The light is bright. Your eyes are very sensitive.
I'm sorry. We're not used to this light.
Exactly.
And
so the world has changed. The aliens have arrived. It's a pure visual storytelling moment. It's just a big matte painting. It's not even a model. It's just a big matte painting of a
except over LA
coming closer and closer to you. Well, there's some model work in it.
Yeah.
But mostly when we see these things, these big motherships, it's matte painting. So that's just how they had to do it. So the camera doesn't move. The camera stays locked, and the sound, whoever the sound guy was for V, the sound of those things, that hum of the giant water engines or whatever that they have, that really is effective whenever you see it. Helps a lot. What happens next?
Well, then we go and we get the wonderful juxtaposition of finding the skeleton of a Homo sapien, and as our archaeologists unearth it, and they're talking about the orbital bones and evolution and how we became who we are suddenly over the hills of the I didn't catch where they were. I'm assuming they were in like Arizona or
right.
I don't know, or somewhere in California again. I don't think this is the introduction. This is basically a roundup of the important characters all experiencing the motherships for the first time. This character that's being introduced here, what you're getting is mostly this old scientist talking about the skull, but the guy that's important that's in the scene is his assistant, Robert Maxwell, played by Michael Durrell.
Mm-hmm. Really good performance. Yeah.
Best performance of Michael's career. Of course, it's pretty beefy. He gets to be at the heart of a lot of drama throughout this stuff. family is sort of the conventional nuclear family who live on the street that looks like your street. You know, it really looked like my street where I grew up. You know, that's effective. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That looked like my neighborhood and felt like my neighborhood. And they felt like the family that lived down the street, the Maxwells. So, and yes, very clever with the talking about the past when the future is humming right around the ridge as it comes into view. The shot of the mothership with the skull is an iconic shot.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, that's a terrific shot. Yeah. And then you know, and then we see these ships coming in, and then obviously we're finding out people are switching on TVs. We get to meet all sorts of other people. One
of them stealing a TV and turns it on, and the alien invasion.
Yes, we get.
Elias Taylor.
Elias
is stealing a TV, and he's checking out. You know, wants to see the quality of the thing before he decides if he's going to climb out the window with it. Smart.
Right. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I was watching and I'm like, is he ripping off that TV from Donovan's mother's house? I don't know why that struck me. There's like, that looks like that could be. Anyway, that was.
It could be, but I don't think that could.
But that also could just be we're running out of sets. That could have been a budgetary.
Sure,
truly.
I don't know. It struck me as like that's what's her face's house. Yeah.
So we meet Elias Taylor, then we also meet Ben Taylor, the doctor
Ben Taylor and
Dr. Ben, and then we meet Caleb Taylor.
We don't meet him yet, but. Oh, yeah, well, I guess we do. Him and Michael Aldridge looking up at the sky at the manufacturing plant or at the cryogenics plant that they work at.
Yeah.
That's true. So, they're important. The Taylors are another really important family that there was a lot going on with the three of them. And it's you know, there's a through line for each of them. That's something that as this goes on, gets worse and worse, but it starts out where every minor character, every speaking role really has something of a dedicated and clearly defined story arc. We'll talk about some of the minor characters later. These are the major characters: Caleb and Ben and Elias, and most importantly, along with it are they at the hospital? Is Julie along with Ben when they watching it on TV? Or is she at home with her boyfriend?
No, she's at the hospital, I thought. Yeah, I think she's at the hospital.
They know each other anyway. All these people are connected in a almost crazy way when you think about it, but in the end, it makes sense. It all fits and is pretty cleverly done.
I think she's at the hospital.
I think I think her and Ben are together when they're friends, and I think
because
because her boyfriend is shirtless, and I noted that he looked kind of sexy.
I think that's later when she comes home.
I think that's when she comes home because that's where we're getting to right now. It's because now they're like, okay, these ships are just hanging out here. What is
changing the world? Right. All the news networks are covering it.
Yeah, and
they got retired news guy Howard Keel to. Which is great. Getting an actual former anchorman to
such legitimacy.
This nonsense on TV is fantastic.
Yep.
And Howard remained part of the V family pretty much for its whole existence.
Yeah.
So that it all feels very real. Very cleverly, these effects, they're all just paintings really, but with sound effects, and when shown on other people's TVs, they're not up to scrutiny like you would need. It's a fantastic way to introduce a global event on a small scale that still feels huge when you're watching it and your imagination is sparked by it.
I mean, real quick, here's what I'll say. I mean, as effective as jumping forward to, you know, obviously Independence Day, you know, I think that there's some clear homage to some
for sure
in Independence Day. And you actually
what you're saying is Independence Day rips off tons of stuff.
There is that.
It does.
But not just this movie. So we'll do a whole episode on everything that Independence Day rips off. But there, you know,
the arrival of the motherships, the reaction to the world globally, the media, that's all right out of this. It's very much the same sequence.
And what I will say is I found it one of the things in watching V again was through that lens, you know, in Independence Day, you get a shot of the the ship over the pyramids and the ship over the Eiffel Tower or whatever. And in this, I think they're almost all done. Like the first time you see it, like you said, it's really effective when you see people watching it on TV. So it's like you're receiving the information just as our characters are receiving the information.
Right. You're being introduced to all the important people in the show, all in this one quick clip sequence. Mm-hmm. Everybody's kept straight. Like the threads that reach out from this little introductory sequence all work. Like there's a ton of people in this show, and I don't have a hard time following any of it or remembering who's who or what the relationships are at all, which is a real testament to how it is on the page and the plan that went into it. And Kenneth Johnson is, he's directed it, and he's a big time movie producer or TV producer, but he's like most good TV producers, he's a writer first. Hollywood, sorry to say, Michael, and I would say the same. It's the same even to some degree for Broadway. The writing's always important, but on TV, the writing's king, because that's the thing. The TV, you're doing 22 episodes or 13 episodes and you're shooting it, and whoever's writing the stuff, whether it's a soap opera or this kind of thing, the writing has to keep coming. The ideas have to keep coming. It's what drives television in a way that it doesn't the other mediums. Film's sort of a director's medium, and any writer who's written for film knows, it's you and 7 other writers, 6 of which you've never met, before the thing actually hits the screen. The writer is really important in Hollywood, but they're not the person in charge, because they're not the person with all the power, because they're not the most needed person. Yeah. And on Broadway, a writer is super important, but they aren't part of the process. They put it down, and it's really kind of an actor audience direct relationship kind of thing.
Well, I think the thing about
without getting too philosophical,
good example, and I think we discussed this in previous episodes, is that there's just enough for all of these people. Obviously, we get a little more for the leads. Right. But there's just enough. I don't feel shortchanged, and I don't feel like I'm being given too much. It's like, it feels like a very perfect space for all of those secondary characters who are important, and we are interested in their journey. But the fact that we don't get too much or too little, it's impressive to me. I never felt gypped,
Mm-hmm. Well, let's take a roll through the neighborhood, since that's what happens here. You talked about Michael Donovan's mother, who lives with his stepfather, who runs the factory that Caleb works at.
It's very smart, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that Joel was about to get here. Sorry, I'm skipping ahead, but only a little bit. Mike's in a sort of convoluted thing that we learn piecemeal, but we figure out Mike's ex-girlfriend has rigged the lottery with which the media people who get to cover the arrival of the visitors on the roof of the World Trade Center, the United Nations, which is it's a great visual. None of the story takes place in New York, so you really feel transported to like a big place in a very simple way, which I adore. What's her name again? Christine Walsh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Played by Jenny Sullivan, I want to say. I don't know everybody's name, but and she's fantastic. This is another really, really important character. But she's rigged this so that Tony and Mike get to be part of the crew that goes on, that gets called up to do whatever. They don't know yet what that is, but whatever happens next. As Joel did a little parody of, John, the most generic name that you can have, comes walking down the gangplank of this little shuttle ship that comes down from the New York mothership. And he looks just like us. We cut around all the characters reacting to this. I mean, he just looks like a person.
Yeah.
He's got he puts the sunglasses on, but he just looks like a guy in a jumpsuit. We've all seen John Hurd and stuff before. He's Hurd, H-E-R-D.
Richard Hurd. Yeah.
Richard Hurd. Sorry, not John. John, played by Richard Hurd. Yeah.
Exactly.
We've all seen him and stuff. He's very famously in Seinfeld and stuff. He's a great character actor. Mm-hmm. And he just gives this message that's just really pleasant and puts everyone at ease. You know, where there's certain chemicals we need for our survival, and you have them plentifully, and we're going to show you how to manufacture them for us. And then if you'll help us do this, we'll share with you all of the fruits of our knowledge, and I believe is the term he uses, all of our medical and, you know, scientific advancements.
There's something I want to point out.
And there's a great scene where I just want to finish this thought, because it's Juliet is at home and her boyfriend says, talk about an offer we can't refuse. And her line is, I wonder what would happen if we did. It's a fantastically written moment.
Well, the thing that appealed to me about this last viewing is that, you know, one of my most hated things is clunky exposition. And I never found that here. And that the moment that you're just talking about is when everyone is watching and you find out that Eleanor, Neva Patterson, you know, Donovan's mom, you find out in that sequence that is her son. You know, it's like, and it's just her husband saying, you know, how did your son get it? And it's very organic, and you get that information. It's not, that's my son, everybody.
Replace her new husband. He asks her, are you worried about him? And she says, since the day I gave birth to him.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. That's so smart and simple. And that's just, to me, a testament to great writing, because we got what we needed. We didn't spend any time. We know the relationship. Done. And it's also the same thing, seeing her crash into Polly at the beginning. We automatically get the class difference by the car, her way she's dressed. It's like, it's like a great example of simplicity and getting everything you need. It's such a smart, and that's one of the things I also thought about. The dialogue's really good. And going back what you said, Julie, saying, well, what happens if we do?
This is all great. This all would have happened in the time we've talked about it, and we'd been way on to the next thing in the miniseries. But to break it down, it's such economy of storytelling, and it is all exposition, and yet it's brilliantly handled. We should talk about the neighbors. We talked about Robert Maxwell a little bit. He's got an extended family. They've got a toddler-ish, and they've got a tween, like a preteen tween, Polly. And a teenage, about 16, 17-year-old daughter, Robin. And what's the name of Penny Windust's character, the mother, Catherine?
Kathleen, I think,
Yes, Kathleen.
Yeah, Kathleen.
Where is she? I just had her right here.
It's the mom, Kathleen. I got it.
Yeah, it's Kathleen. Kathleen.
Kathleen Maxwell. And their next door neighbors are the, what
Bernsteins?
are they? The Bernsteins. Thank you.
Yep.
That's a fantastic family dynamic. That's like my favorite family in this whole scene.
You'll have to name the actors of the Bernsteins. David Packer plays Daniel, the teenage son.
Bonnie Bartlett.
Bonnie Bartlett is
the mom. Yep.
His mom.
Leonard Cimino.
Leonardo Cimino plays the grandfather of the Bernsteins.
Yeah. And then George Morfogen plays,
who's great.
Who plays Stanley.
There's some great moments in that family.
It's great stuff.
Wow.
So it's important that we do the kind of roll call for them, because they're all kind of important, and we're gonna try and keep them straight. They're their shared gardener in the neighborhood is Sancho as well, so he becomes important.
Sancho Gomez.
Yep. The gardener becomes important.
And we shan't forget Vivica Davis as Polly Maxwell.
I mentioned her, but we'll talk about her in depth here in a bit when we talk about her science project.
Yeah.
You cannot forget Vivica Davis as Polly, though. She's unforgettable.
Polly is.
I think I do want to mention too the introduction of Robin. Blair Tefkin's performance. There's an automatic distaste for her when I watched it, which I think is a testament to it's a good character. She's written well, and Blair Tefkin's really, I think, pretty good. But there's an automatic.
Blair encapsulates this sort of innocence and cluelessness and single-mindedness of the character in a really wonderful way.
And that the self-absorption that period of self-absorption that you go through as a teenager. When everything is the most important thing, every moment is the most important thing in the world. And even if there are giant, spaceships in the sky, you're still worried about,
Yeah, what your friend might have said about you behind your back, or who you have a crush on. Like, all that is the only thing that matters in your life.
But it's as you go on. I mean, obviously we'll get into that. It's just to continue her cluelessness is infuriating. It's to watch it is like there's a moment with Daniel, which of course we'll talk about, but I'm like, oh my God, you are so stupid. I just want to hit you.
Well, they're sitting on the lawn together. They obviously know each other. And she's like, what did she say? The classic, I don't want to die a virgin. Something else that Independence Day rips off.
Before love.
Yeah, I want to make love. And Daniel's like, those are the exact words I wanted to hear. And he pulls the whole, let me put my arm around you, baby, move.
Yeah.
But the West Coast visitor crisis keeps interrupting these other things that might have happened that are normal things. And I guess we should move on to the next bit. What happens?
So
they do their tour, right?
Yeah, they say, hey, we get it. You're probably really curious.
We also get a clip, of Sean Donovan, Michael's son, and his ex-wife, played by Joanna Kearns.
Yeah.
That's important that we see them at this point.
Yep.
And that's another bit of that great exposition. She says something about alimony. I'm like, God, it's just so smart.
Yeah,
It's not,
maybe
that's my ex-husband.
Right.
No, she says something about alimony. I'm like, God,
right. Her live-in boyfriend.
Live-in
He doesn't
lover,
say, look, there's your ex-husband, Mike Donovan.
Yeah.
He's going about, I mean, it's
so smart. But alimony, okay. I mean, immediately we know. We get it. We understand. It's just so.
Of course, Sean says, "Look, Mom, it's Dad." Or
well, yeah, but we don't know her relationship.
It's more than that.
She says
exactly.
It.
You get the divorce. You get everything, all in one little.
Again, because
5-line scene. It's amazing.
And again, like you were, like we've hinted at, our humanity gets in the way. It's not like, oh my God, I know one of the first people on that is going to go aboard an alien ship. Her reaction is, of course.
Of course, it's him.
Of course, it's Mike.
Oh yeah, and maybe now
wish I never
money.
Met him.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, it's
a different sort of take, which is fun.
I think that's a good point, Joel. It's really interesting that in light of all this, we're still not going to get past our stupid crap.
Right, and every one of these scenes shows that, demonstrates it very clearly. What does Mike's mom say when John's making his speech? She's like, "Ooh!" She grabs on to Hansford's leg, and she's like,
you don't even
call what's his face and see if they get set up
get your factory on board
for this.
Yeah,
this could be very lucrative for us and very
But it also sets up Eleanor so perfectly. Like, oh my God, you are. And of course, we know later that she's a horrible, horrible person. But there's a scene later, I won't talk about now, but that you realize you see a little more insight into her. There's a human portion, even though she's.
You bet.
And it's I don't know. I again, watching this week, I was impressed as hell at how everything there, it's just all so smart.
Yep.
And
we're about 10 minutes into V and we're about 40 minutes into our show.
Okay. All right.
So we're on
Michael,
Yep.
I'm just going to say this. This is a little early to be calling it. I'm not going to call it, but it looks like the V deep dive is going to be one episode this week and one episode next week. And final battle to come sometime thereafter. Are you up for that?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then we can continue. Otherwise, we gotta step up the pace.
Yeah, we gotta get going.
Or we're not gonna get anywhere near any of this. I think we have to do that anyway. But whatever.
So
it's a big deal. All these characters. That's the beauty of E. The ensemble of the characters is really the number one thing. How well drawn they are. That's why you can watch it again and again and again and again. And the visual effects were amazing for the time. The reveals and the plot are incredible. But you only get to experience them once.
Yeah.
It's these people and their struggles and their experiences and their relationships and the way they change and make each other better and braver. That's what's exciting about V. So
Agreed.
Before I lose that idea, I'll get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
But this whole sequence, it's perfect. It demonstrates that perfectly, and you're off to the races.
So they're aboard the mothership. They get to walk around.
They don't really though. Don't we watch that all after the fact? We cut to them going in the shuttle. This is one of these great sequences. There's like 3 of them in a row here.
And then we get Mike and
where you just start watching the broadcast. You don't go with the characters on their journey. And then
because Christine wants to watch it again.
Watching the broadcast cuts to Christine and a now shirtless Mark Singer in bed in some cool New York condo, watching their footage that they shot earlier.
Let's watch it again.
Let's watch it again. No, Elwood and I watched it this week, and I'm like, that's a pretty nice New York apartment. That's all I'll say.
It's very nice. Super nice. Yeah. It's pretty, it would be really expensive. Maybe it's a hotel room. I don't know. But the point is, it's swanky.
Yeah.
Christine Walsh is no BS. She's a really, she's a really impressive reporter and obviously a really ambitious one. We know that because she made it happen. And then not only did she take the time to fix it so that she was one of the people, she got her people that she knew and could trust in on it as well.
But the interesting depth on that is that she obviously wants to get back with Mike. Obviously that was a play to, I did this for you.
And they do everything she wanted in her whole life as she's at the center of the world with the ex-lover that she pines after the most. It all happened in this one night. All of Christine's dreams have been realized. But, Michael, was her dream about to become a nightmare?
Right after this.
Normally Joel would say that, but I couldn't help myself. They're sitting there talking, and she's telling them she fixed it and all this. And they start to get pulled apart as well because for different reasons.
the main important moment for what is just about to come on screen
is the introduction to somebody very important. Very important.
So we get,
there's your girlfriend again.
So we get so clearly Arthur made that phone call right away, and it was
well. Let's talk about Diana real quick.
Well,
we don't see her or really hear from her, but in the TV footage, Christine gives Mike a hard time for shooting close-ups of her and stuff, and she's not even talking. And she's like, "You gave her more close-ups than me," is what she says.
The interesting insight in that is that as the series and the final battle and everything goes on, the development of the relationship between Diana and Donovan, this is a wonderful little precursor to all the different places and ways that's going to develop. I think I don't know if Johnson had that in mind, but
Diana, she doesn't say much. She doesn't smile. She's just kind of in the background of these scenes. It turns out that Diana, we'll talk about her constantly, but it turns out that what we learn about her in this scene is she's the head of the scientific part of the mission for this globally. So she's an important person.
I believe, is it too early to give them the name Dianovan? Their celebrity nickname?
I'm on board. I'm totally on board.
Dianovan, there'll be much more discussion of Dianovan later.
For those of you shippers out there, we give you Dianovan.
I ship Dianovan. All right, so
she's important, played by Jane Badler, and just incredibly iconic role.
One of my longtime girlfriends.
There's no V without Diana. It's as simple as that. As perfect as these people are for these bits and these roles, and we'll talk about a bunch of them, the only one you flat out can't change whatsoever is Jane Badler as Diana. That had to be a part of V, truly.
So then we get the essentially the clown car of V transports,
and the high school band is there playing the Star Wars
theme.
Yeah, that is so brilliant. It is just so perfect, and they're so clunky and bad.
That's exactly what we would do. We're clearly,
so stupid. Whatever they paid to be able to get the rights to
was worth it.
Was absolutely worth it for that moment.
Yes.
And then so then the technicians are arriving at the plant, and they're hanging, and literally they just keep coming. And you can see the workers at this
plant. Many of them are there.
Yeah, they're just like, okay.
There's only one, just a little tip. There's only one shuttle model in the whole series. There's a little fighter model, and then the life-size ones, and there's a size shuttle. And even those are module, so you can take the middle of it out and make the cargo carrier a fighter shuttle because they're the same. So you can have two of these various things. They're very much like the Space 1999 Eagles, which are also modular and very much like what you would have in space. It's important that everything fit and be the right kind of shape and size. So there's a design element to it. That's right. And most of the time we see those flying around sometimes they're models, but mostly they're just paintings, of things kind of moving through the sky. But it's so cool when the shuttle comes down, all these people come out. There's even a hot visitor played by Peter Nelson. His name is
Brian,
right? He's pretty hot.
He is.
Robbins plays the flute in the band. She certainly thinks he's hot. He makes an impression on her.
Yeah, she's thinking about band camp that one time.
Exactly.
But my favorite
I think that might be important later.
My favorite bit in that scene is I don't remember Michael Aldridge's character. He probably has one. I don't think it's stated in the show, but he says, what's the problem or whatever to Caleb. And Caleb's like, man, we've been fighting you honkies for jobs all these years or whatever. And now we got to compete with these.
Yep.
What's he call them? These creeps.
Bill Graham. The character's name, Bill Graham.
Score. That's a great name for a character played by Aldridge. She's barely in it, but he's a good actor, so he's worth naming. But Caleb's take on it, his immediate resentment of the aliens. Again, you've got a minority American character who is not happy about the aliens that are coming into his workforce or whatever. Like it's a very clever reversal of different political things that we still have going on in the world right now that I really, really dig.
I think one of the other bonuses of this sequence is, as jokey as it is how many are there. There's a sense of dread as you're watching, as they keep coming and keep coming. And then another shuttle comes down.
And the Star Wars theme keeps playing and keeps playing. And it becomes the most joyous space opera music in the world, becomes this creepy, it's never going to stop kind of thing.
They get to like the Empire, not like the Empire Strikes Back theme, but like the Imperial theme from Star Wars as part of that thing, like as it keeps going. And I think I want to say it's like the first time it's either when John comes up, it might have even been when Diana comes up onto the stage.
Yeah, probably Diana. John, I don't think is part of this, but
I'm sorry, not John, but wasn't
Andrew.
Stephen. No, Stephen.
Stephen Andrew Prine.
Andrew Prine,
the great Andrew Prine. We'll call him. He's so awesome.
Yeah, when they come up on the stage,
he's such an underrated actor. I love him.
Yeah, we're into the Imperial theme. Yeah, I mean, and of course, and this is through obviously watching it on a home video. And I went back and I started to really chuckle at some of the props that, because there was all these extras just coming out and lining up
with an ice cream maker.
And some of them are essentially like, I have a pencil.
Yeah.
And they're carrying
they all have those big styrofoam briefcases and stuff. But.
Well, and then when it gets to the end, like toward the end, though, they don't even have the big styrofoam cases. They just literally like, I have this, and it's like I have cup, and they're all like just kicking, but everyone's committed to going and getting in the line, and it's a very cool sequence. It's really great. It's a lot of people, a lot of stuff, and again, a lot of visual storytelling. There's a lot of relationships and things being set up there, with no words, which is really great. The words that happen are great, but you already, if you've ever watched anything in your life. And it's not that V's so predictable or whatever, because it has some twists and some subversions that are really brilliant, and some of which are set up here. But if you've watched anything, Robin's smile while trying to play the flute while grinning ear to ear while she sees Brian come off that shuttle she's like, they're hot aliens and I'm going to have me one of them. I mean, you just tell like her whole life is going to revolve around that.
Well, but the development of that and where that goes is stunning.
Yeah, I agree.
But the fact that, again, this little moment is kind of throwaway.
You know what's going to happen. And if you
No, you don't.
Well, you kind of do.
Well, in the final battle, yes. Maybe. But to set that up and to realize...
You know what's going to happen. you just don't know how we're gonna get there. I don't think expected to get there quite like this. And we'll get to that in just a little bit. So what do you do? It's good. Hey, it's good times. Happy days are here again. The aliens are coming in. They're doing their thing. We're all, everyone's like, oh my God, I can't wait. Now we just gotta start those scientific discussions where you tell us all the fun stuff, right? Aliens?
Yeah.
Hey guys. Okay.
Unfortunately.
But you know what you do? You have a party. You throw a party.
Again, this is another sequence where you don't see the party. You see the Maxwell's couple
reminiscing,
talking about the party they just came home from and flashing back to it. It's kind of the same as it's very, very clever. So that they can have it's two things. One, it's a family discussion about this weird neighborhood party they were at with aliens. Can you believe it? And two, there's an anthropologist who noted dozens of weird things that happen at the party. So we're getting tons of exposition from a really smart guy.
Yeah.
But in the context of this light couple conversation, it's brilliant.
Well, but you also get the relationship
to Barbara, Michael.
Well, you get their relationship.
She's shy. She doesn't talk very much.
Who?
Barbara.
Barbara's at that party.
Yep.
Oh, you're right.
It's Stephen and
Jenny
Barbara
Newman of Hell Night fame.
That's
anyway.
right.
But you also get the information in that sequence about their relationship, the Maxwells.
Yes.
Which is important for something that will happen later.
Yep.
As far as how we're going to connect. You also get the information of how Eleanor works.
Yep.
You're getting a lot crammed into a little bit. It's such again, smart use of time, and you're getting what you need to move forward.
And it's a cute conversation between these people who have a fun rapport together and are a married couple that are easy to root for and really like.
Yeah.
Now on to the anthropological stuff.
Yeah.
His hand is cold. Didn't you notice that? Yeah, I did notice that. It's weird.
They never ate.
Yeah, they never ate anything. He only ate
Just
vegetables and only a couple of them. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Oh, and the birds didn't like him.
Yeah, every time
every time Stephen walked by the birdcage, the birds freaked out. That's weird, isn't it? I mean, every time. Like panic.
Oh well.
That's where the scene ends. Boom.
Yeah.
And they're both.
Yeah.
That's weird. What could possibly
Meanwhile,
go
across town.
There's some discoveries are being made.
Meanwhile, across town, late scientist that Robert works for is pulling a late night.
Yep.
Puts some files away, heads out to his car, and somebody's waiting for him.
Oh yeah,
that is literally the sound from that moment.
Yeah. But this is where it kind of kicks into overdrive. Like I was noticing, and I didn't have a problem with the pacing, but I was like, oh, okay, because immediately now the gaslighting is beginning. It's like it's starting already, and I figured it would be a little longer before.
Once these people start disappearing, these famous scientists, we've seen one of them we think get killed. We don't actually see it, but it's a disturbing moment where you kind of know what happened. You see another one gets framed. Juliet's boss. who she's a research assistant for, he gets framed for being part of what the visitors and the local governments are calling a conspiracy of scientists.
Yes.
To steal the scientific secrets of the visitors without sharing with humanity. Like it's a very Trumpian conspiracy in that it is literally the thing the visitors are trying to do that they're accusing their imaginary enemies of doing so that you can get the world to turn on them. And it works. Enough people believe it that it's suddenly bad news to be a scientist, right?
Yeah. Yep. But then, so all of that's happening, and then we get the wonderfully juxtaposed right after that. Suddenly, it's here comes our innocent, wacky little alien buddy.
Yep.
Who later, of course, goes on to be Freddy Krueger, but that's different. Robert Englund. Here comes Robert Englund, and he's just.
Just what?
Just
damn stupid alien. Another one of my favorite. Caleb Tyler.
Yep.
Bernard. What's that actor's name? Because I love him.
Yes.
Everything he does in V is perfect.
It is
Bernard.
Okay, I got to switch to this other one because this one is all out of order.
Well, it's a great introduction, and I think it's also a great way to humanize the aliens, and to build
This guy
sympathy,
is
which is unexpected. You wouldn't.
This guy is lovable. He's just he's lost,
He's
of course,
just.
but he keeps saying he's just. He explains he learned Arabic because he was supposed to go there,
supposed to be
and
stationed.
then through some sort of mistake, he ended up in Southern California, and he's trying to figure out English. And what is Harmony, the woman who ends up, the nice lady, the food truck lady who ends up helping him, is like, oh, trust me, that happens here all the time. Like it's like you say, it's completely relatable and wonderful. And these two people have a nice, no, you're lost.
Yeah.
Oh, lost.
Yeah. But don't you find it interesting? Don't you find it interesting that they made the choice? I mean, obviously we know where this will go, but to humanize and build sympathy for who we already are seeing as starting to be the enemy.
Right. They have let's learn about the cool visitors trump card in their back pocket already. So this Willie character you don't really need. But introducing an alien who is, for all intents and purposes, an innocent is genius. And England is remarkably genius in him. The writing doesn't stay good for him throughout the V situation, but in the proper miniseries, it's great from start to finish. And he's just fantastic in the role. And the lady who plays Harmony too, his
Diane Savita.
Yeah, his adopted friend, she's fantastic. And it's the start. It's the perfect thing, she's just, all the guys have treated her like crap, and she's just looking for a sweetheart.
Yeah.
And here he is one, and he's an alien, but he's not, he looks just like us. We'll work through it,
Yeah.
We can't be that different.
I'm getting ahead of myself, but that element to that relationship is delightful. And it's even, as an audience member, before it even turns, that it's tragic at the same time in a lot of ways. Or,
and we get
pretends to be
a wonderful. Did we mention Jason Bernard is playing Caleb Taylor?
Yeah, that's why I was just trying to say that.
Yeah, Jason Bernard. Okay, so then we'll
get to him. He has a moment that is a show-stopping, dramatic moment in the thing that we'll get to in a bit. But
and so we get
maybe next week. Actually, we'll see.
Maybe sometime before June, or hopefully. But we. So then we cut to Diana's office. I think it's Diana's office or Diana's whatever, into one of my favorite scenes. It's Diana and Christine Walsh, and Diana just fawning all over her, telling her what a great job she's been doing. Everybody is just, and you're so trustworthy. You are exactly what we need to be our official spokesperson.
Spokesperson of the visitors.
Hand on shoulder.
All that touching, all that tactile stuff that Badler's doing in that scene.
Oh, so good.
She's like, you're my new human pet, and I'm going to have you do all the things that I need to tell people it's off the hook. So good.
Yeah.
And of course, Christine, she has one little twitch of her eye when she's offered this, that she doesn't completely dive into it, but of course she's going to do it. We've met her and we know what her deal is. And very soon after the scene, her and Mike are arguing about it. He's like, well, what about your objectivity? I mean, you can't just be a spokesperson for them. I mean, we don't even know anything about them really, or whatever. She doesn't get it. She's like, I'm gonna have exclusives on everything that comes from the aliens. What are you talking about? Of course I'm gonna do it. And that they don't break up per se in this scene, but this is the last scene where they're friends together, where there isn't some other major thing going on amongst them. And again, I'm talking about exposition, and it's really well played by both actors. But she's like, so what do you think? And he's like, well, I think you better put the steaks back in the freezer.
Yes.
And she says, what? Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, I have to go do this thing. And he's like, yeah, I know. You're going to go do your thing, and I can't follow you where you're going.
But this is another great example. I mean, Christine is an important character, but we don't know a whole lot about her other than she's driven.
Right.
But again, it's enough. It's enough. And she still breathes. The character still lives.
Well, the actor brings a lot of between the lines sort of business to her that makes her more than just what her utility is in the story, which is that's true of almost all of these actors, really. I try to have a hard time thinking of like a bad one. You know, they're all really, really good.
Well,
real quick though, we did skip. We did skip. So right after the official spokesperson, your spokeswoman, then an accident happens. Oh my gosh, there's something wrong at the plant.
All right.
And it's no human could survive to go. No human can survive.
Michael Aldridge comes stumbling out of this room, and there's all this television effects, like practical steam and stuff coming out of it. It's all cryogenics that they work at this plant, and Caleb's stuck in there, and Willie goes running in, and Aldridge's character, Bill Graham, I guess is his name, says, you can't go in there or whatever. And there's this great Steven, no human can survive in there. And Steven gives him this look like, yeah, and it's really good acting, like.
Yeah.
And Willie, blistered from head to toe, comes out with Caleb around his arm. He saved his life. He was going to die if he stayed in there.
But going back to Steven, the reaction, him looking at Willie blistering is so clean and simple, but it's like, get the hell to the ship right now without saying.
I don't think Andrew Bryan has any lines in this whole sequence, and he's almost the star of it in a way, because all the knowing things are happening on his face, even though it's Willie's heroic moment where the damn stupid alien saves the guy who's all prejudiced against him.
Yeah.
And and we've seen all this before. They're gonna be pals now, and isn't that neat? Gosh, it's really great. I mean, this is a television cliche that's happening before our eyes, but in the world of the story is established, and we're not quite there to the first big reveal yet, but we're going to get there in a minute. Obviously it can't be that cliche. It's going to be something different, and that's exciting.
Well, I thought it was also, I think I agree with you, it's a cliche, but I think the moment when that first guy comes out and knocks his arm on the pipe, that sets up
breaks off.
Exactly. That sets up the urgency and the terror of this moment. I think it's really smart, rather than he comes out, he's blistered, but what are we going to think about that? He's an alien. But to see a human being affected by this, I think is an important thing. It's not Caleb.
Well, and just the brutal sort of gore and violence of the arm breaking.
Yeah.
We've all seen people frozen, and we've seen it in Terminator, and we've seen it in all this. So this is almost an action movie cliche, but this guy comes out with a white arm and he bangs it against a little guide rail and it shatters. Yeah. That's what cryo freezing is. It absolutely turns tissue to ice, and that's just, it's brutal. It's just really kind of amazing for a television event at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of skipped right past that, but Willie saves the day, man.
Willie saves the day. And so then we have that great Mike and Christine scene. And then we go back and we're going to hang out in the neighborhood a little bit. We're going to hang out with the Maxwells and the Bernsteins. And of course, Grandpa Bernstein, Abraham Bernstein's good buddy, Ruth.
Love Ruth.
Yep,
Freaking love Ruth.
Camilla Ashland. Playing Ruth. Ruth has got some problems, and she's got some concerns.
Does she?
Isn't that what happened?
No, I think it's
Grandpa does.
It's Grandpa that has concerns.
That's right.
She Ruth starts, although she evolves, but she starts out as a character who really wants to believe, like a lot of people of her generation, we know them now, really just, despite the evidence, wants to believe that everything's going to be okay, right? I mean, well, they say this, well, they say that. She's playing devil's advocate on behalf of the aliens in this scene to Grandpa Bernstein, who's lived it. He lived through the Holocaust. He's a Holocaust survivor, and everything he's seeing and hearing is terrible. Is really, really bad news. And his grandson is joining up with this thing called the Visitors Friends Program. Daniel Bernstein.
The Visitor Youth.
The Visitor Youth. They don't call it that, but yes. That's right. And super excited. He gets this sort of not quite crimson red uniform he gets to wear, just a little less
it was like
red.
the uniforms that were left in the laundry a bit too long.
That's what it feels like. A little faded. We can't have the humans. We'll give them uniforms, but we can't have them looking as sharp and snazzy as us.
Well, they also got to keep them separate. I mean, I guess they can probably sniff that out, but you know.
But Ruth, Harmony, there are a few characters throughout that really do represent this. It's just a human thing. It's not that these are stupid characters at all. Ruth is certainly not a stupid character. They just want to believe things are going to be okay. They don't really want to question stuff. I mean, why would you want to? Why would you want to think everything's going to be the worst that it could be? You know, well, the martial law will end soon, or I guess we're not to martial law yet. That's what's next, right? The infiltration of the ship.
Yeah, the next thing is a whole bunch of things happen.
Boom. These are a few moments of television that changed the world.
We do get to we get a little bit more of the Maxwells and
did we do Polly's science experiment or volcano or whatever that she built when she comes home from school and she's got a black eye and a bloody lip, and she's got her totally destroyed science experiment that won first prize under her arm?
I don't know that is that happening, because I don't think.
Well, it's part of this what's called the scientific it's more than just isn't Polly awesome. It's showing that her father is a known scientist and she is getting hell for it at school. Whatever the conspiracy, whatever the evil propaganda is working. The fact that Polly is a badass and she gives the old badass fighter line, well, you should see the other guys, I kicked their ass.
It's interesting to know where it's going and to look back and to hear Polly say, I think 2 or 3 times, why aren't we going to fight?
Yeah.
I mean, that's an important thing for what is actually going to happen.
Well, she's a fighter. So this scene shows that. She fought these kids.
Exactly. But the fact that she says that, and then that's where we're going to go.
So that's where Polly is, but...
and her mom and Ruth, like, she just walking with her bike and her stuff, and she just goes on, and the rest of them are like... The harsh reality of added wisdom is hitting them. All she wants to do is hit back. I love...
But meanwhile,
Polly Maxwell. She's what I wish I was. She's just brave, and she doesn't take shit, and she knows when something's right or wrong, and just has this. She just attacks it. I whenever I meet somebody like that, I'm always like, wow. Oh, I wish I was like you, but I'm not.
However, meanwhile, like Robin is still just like, oh, that Brian.
Well, I mean, if I were in Robin's position,
There's a scene with her and Daniel where Daniel's trying to talk about how Visitor Friends is awesome, and all she'll do is keep asking about Brian.
How's Brian? Did he ask about me?
Did he ask about me?
That's actually much later, but that's the scene I was talking about where I hate you, Robin Maxwell. You're so stupid.
Don't hate Robin. Don't hate the player.
Don't hate her yet. Give it.
Well, it's the game, Michael.
Let it stew a little bit. All right, so something's going on. Something's going down, and who's the first to really make the breakthrough and notice that, hey, I think something might be up. Something might be going on here.
Well, Mike and Tony have been hinting that they want to get a behind-the-scenes look at what's going on. And they go to the manufacturing plant and sort of hide out. And when one of the shuttles starts to head up to the ship right before the door closes, Mike runs out and jumps in, and Tony trips on something. Something that's the only thing that's like right in front of him he trips on, so he doesn't make it.
But
so
Tony,
Mike has
before that, though, Tony's the one who notices... the dude right in his left hand. Yeah.
You're doing it. You need to do it in profile, though. That's how he does it.
Mm-hmm. He notices that he's writing with a left hand. Remember
it's funny because for such a guy who the only thing he says in every one of his lines is a joke, like he has this really cool scene where he's playing back this video footage and he sees that one of these scientists that's speaking out against other scientists is signing a statement of support for the visitors with his left hand. And he knew that he'd met this guy at this conference and something sticks out at him. And that's what he's noticing when he's watching it. And he says, and look, this other guy, he's also left-handed. And I found some other footage of him you know,
But I think
right-handed.
that's-
Until just a few days ago, these guys were both right-handed, and neither of them seemed the type of people who would be all anti-science. Like, it seems really incongruous and weird.
Well, I think what's interesting too is that in any other writing scenario, looking at it, it's like, well, it's convenient that he met this guy, but I don't know if it's just the experience, but I whole hog bought into it. It's like, of course he met this guy because they're news guys, so they've covered this before. It all makes sense. It never feels convenient to me.
Right.
Like, you know, like, of course.
It is a little convenient, but it
doesn't feel
played
bad.
really smartly. He's got the video evidence. He even states, something was wrong with this. I didn't know what, so I did this research, and that's where I noticed.
It's played like a coincidence.
Really, really well.
It's played as but it was a coincidence. We happened to do that thing, and so I went back and found the footage. Blah blah blah. And you know, I think the another lesson that we take away from that is the sound person is always watching. They're not just recording sound; they're watching.
They're watching. Look out for the sound guy. And hey, sound guy, look out for that little hose that's on the ground, or you're going to trip and fall, and you won't get on it.
And also do a little bit more press ups.
Yeah, to lift yourself.
Get yourself up into that ship. So anyway, so Mike is stowed away.
Mike's going on a solo mission to infiltrate the visitor ship through these really conveniently huge air ducts that they have on the ship. They're really, really nice and easy to get around
and quiet. He doesn't make up.
But I noticed the design was really cool.
Yeah. And also, and it's great because he's just able to go and say, I wonder what this person's doing. I wonder what this person.
He somehow finds himself amongst the living quarters of the visitors, including
Diana
a couple of high-ranking officers.
Diana and
right,
Steven,
it's Diana and Steven that are having a conversation.
Yep.
What are they talking about?
They're stuff. They're talking about the plans. They're talking
what's
about
all those hamsters and guinea pigs that they have in there? Is that some part of some science experiment or something?
Well, surely it must be part of the science experiment.
Well, yeah, Diana's the science officer.
Yeah,
right?
so clearly, so when they walk over there and they're just like,
it's very clever. They walk out of frame, then they kind of come back like something's going on here.
It's a true POV of Mike.
Yeah.
So it's like when he's looking at Diana and then all of a sudden he notices something in the camera, shoots back hard at Steven, and we see Steven.
Steven swallowing a little white mouse. And Diana, who had a light lunch.
Clearly. Yeah. She only had a couple of those raw vegetables.
She had a salad for lunch. So she goes full guinea pig.
Yep.
And again, this is a makeup effect.
Unhinges the jaw.
Yeah,
that's a little crazy, but the music, the reveal, like it all really clicks and is horrific and horrifying.
It is, but this is interesting. As we watched this last week,
when you look at a still photograph of the model with the jaw down, it doesn't really hold up to scrutiny, but in motion, in the moment, it does totally work.
Yeah, and then we get a reaction shot, and then we cut back, and it's Jane Badler, and they did some sort of special effect with the throat,
which is great,
like a snake, something moving its way down a snake.
Yeah,
really,
it's so good.
But this is an interesting point Elwood made when we watched it, is that he's like, at this point, Mike's heard them talking about some stuff, but at this point, we can't judge them for eating these critters. I mean,
not necessarily.
They are aliens. I mean, that's maybe just what they do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so at this point, it's still, I mean, as grotesque it is to us.
We might find that unsettling, and they would know that. So keeping it private probably makes a lot of sense.
But they look like us. So
I secretly think Elwood is a collaborator with the visitors.
I think
he's
like
not.
That, but.
I think when him in his sort of faded salmon jumpsuit that Elwood wears all the time.
that might tell you something.
He is the one who gave me this hat.
I need to go. Click.
But yeah, so then
he makes a point. This alone isn't enough.
Yeah,
and even the next thing. Well, the
Mike
next thing he just shows up at the air vent of some random security guy. And he's coming home from a hard day at work, oppressing scientists, and he just decides it's time to take his eyes out of his head.
Yep.
and does. And Donovan kind of freaks trying to get this on camera, finally makes a sound in the air vent, and the guy whips around to look at him, and he's got these these yellow reptilian
Sauron
eyes.
eyes.
Yeah, and he pulls off the air vent, pulls Mike down on it. They have a great sort of you know, like from Russia with Love kind of fight in this little compartment where he's getting slammed up against the door. Mark Singer's a great physical actor, does all his own fighty stuff and his own horse riding and his own everything. He's a great dude that way.
Shirt. I think he lost another button from the shirt.
It's possible. It's certainly possible. Anyway, during the scuffle, he scrapes this guy's cheek and the dude's skin comes off. And he appears to have some sort of green, scaly skin underneath his face, which causes Donovan to kind of scrape at him some more, and he's revealed as being a human-sized lizard man.
Yep,
he is indeed.
And like Elwood would surely say, sorry to put words in his mouth, but he would say, well, they are lizard men, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they're still nice people. I think the thing that this shows isn't so much that they're lizards, and lizards are inherently evil.
It's the betrayal.
They are inherently cold-blooded.
It's the betrayal. It's the lie.
It's the subterfuge. It's the lie that's being revealed. That's the big thing.
Yeah, we did. Oh, we did also catch one of the first things Mike sees when he arrives on the ship is some aliens are hooking
the
up
chemicals
some
that they're manufacturing down on Earth. They're just dumping back into the
air. Yeah, which
that's
is like,
weird.
Oh, what?
That's the whole reason they're here, right?
I thought we were helping them. They said they needed our help.
But of course, me going deeper, we're watching this and I'm like, so is that just landing in someone's Burbank backyard, like sprinkling onto their grass, whatever this chemical is?
I can say this without revealing another reveal. The visitors do not have any interest in poisoning our atmosphere or our population or a water supply or anything. So
that's true.
So they probably engineered something that would be perfectly harmless and untraceable when dumped back into the atmosphere. It's just a subterfuge. Again, it's all a lie. One of my favorite sequences, unsung sequences in V, is the newsroom. You don't see this from Mike's standpoint. You see it from the control room in a news station where they're come to life with this red hot video that Mike Donovan, he makes his escape, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
We don't need to go into that. But he gets out, he has this video footage of this lizard guy and all this stuff that he's seen, and it's all going to go on the news. And Johnson does it great. It's this huge setup. Cameras are whipping around. Everyone's shouting on headsets and talking to people and stuff. And then suddenly just snow on the screen. And the controller, the person she's like, the executive producer is like, the signal's gone. I mean, we're not being broadcast anywhere. And then all the TVs come on with the same image of a very friendly looking John, the supreme commander, saying, something bad has happened. The conspiracy of scientists has resulted in much of attacks on us. Including a very sad one from a man named Mike Donovan, who we put our trust in. And Mike's sitting in a chair ready to talk about his video, putting his mic down here where he actually has
down
near his belly button. And
can you hear this? Okay. Can you hear this?
Well, it's great that he's doing this. Like,
let me open this so that it doesn't scrape on the mic.
The authorities in your government have suggested a state of martial law will get us through this. And we agree. It's just all so reasonable and nice. Yeah. John is such a diplomat, and he's so good at playing the role, even though it's all a lie. And then as soon as that emergency broadcast ends, the visitors show up. There's lasers firing everywhere. Tony grabs the tape out of the machine at the last second. Quick Tony, because that tape is gold. And him and Donovan get out. But a lot of these news people are just killed and stuff. I mean, that whole sequence is so harrowing and exciting. Yeah. It's the only thing people were talking about at work the next day. There's no question that they're lizards. There's nothing in the advertising that even hints at that. That's just a secret that was saved for the broadcast, and you knew something was up with the visitors because the advertising was all ominous and serious, and just because you just know it. Because what kind of story would it be if they just was about us making friends with aliens? Probably not much of a story. Maybe. And then Michael, you should try and write that. Maybe
they cured everything that was wrong with Earth, and we helped their planet. And then they left and went home
and fade out. There you go.
Fade.
Give the people what they want.
Yeah. Even it had to be more than that. Anyway, although it could have been like Cocoon, I suppose. There are many ways they could have taken this, but no. The aliens literally have swastikas on their uniforms. I mean, this is not, it's thinly veiled at best from a storytelling standpoint, but we appreciate that.
But let me point out what I think is great, because of course, as a young kid, I was drawn into the sci-fi and the action and all that. Yeah. But on consecutive or subsequent viewings that I've watched it and seeing, with the, like you said, the use of wisdom and age, it's like, wow, to see all those little things, which aren't necessarily hitting you on the head. Some of them are, like the swastika, but it's fascinating to me that, that, like you said in the intro, that you could do something like this and tell a story like that. It's really interesting. And the fact that it still works and it is still quite, it now as an adult, I'm upset by it for different reasons, not because I'm scared of spitting lizards, it's like, it's a very upsetting
as
story.
A kid, it's primal. And when you're older, you really do see how the system breaks down, how helpless we are, even though we don't think we are economically helpless, just technologically helpless in the face of these aliens. Like the whole thing is disconcerting, but the rise of fascism is always
right. But how interesting is it? There's I can't think of a lot of examples of films that you see at certain times of your life that you're going to get something completely different like this. I mean, you're going to, like other movies, I'll still love them because of nostalgia, but like something like this, I love it because of the nostalgia, but I can also love it with a new understanding of what was happening.
Right.
Yeah. And I think, there's a lot that can do that. Yeah.
There's an inside love of it and an outside love of it. And the just the impressiveness with which this came together, it was a great idea. Johnson was inspired and had time, which is something he never had as a TV writer, to actually develop it and make it the best it could be. And then was more or less given creative control for it when they let him direct it. So it really is his thing. I mean, we can't stress that enough. Kenneth Johnson had a vision for what V was supposed to be, and you really feel like you got it. Like he got it. He achieved it. There's some things maybe that could be better, but looking back on it, it's like it's what it sets out to do, it does in the most effective way imaginable. Anyway, where are we in the breakdown?
Well, so things are not good for scientists.
Not to pass that by, Michael, because you're dead right. It's from a storyteller can watch this, and from a storytelling perspective, from a purely mercenary perspective, it's wonderful. You know what I mean? Even if you know the characters, and even if you don't get wrapped up in their lives, even if you just have it on in the background, there's moments where you can stop and watch and just enjoy the pure craft of the thing. I totally know what you're saying when you say that. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, John.
So I was saying, things are not good for the scientific community.
Jeez,
that's an understatement.
And doctors and etc. They are persona non grata, and whatever the alien language would be for that. Probably like
what are they, Galaxy Quest now?
Nama non grata.
And
that's for later.
So let's go to the Maxwells.
Yeah.
Maxwell's got to figure out something to do here, because good old Robert Maxwell, he's he's a scientist, and he knows that things can get bad here.
They're packing up the station wagon.
Station wagon. They're going to go.
This is where Paulie's great. Why don't we just fight? It's her only line in the whole thing. Shot through the hood.
Fight your younger sister who won't shut the hell up later. That's what you need to fight.
Well, and she's whining. Well, what about my friends? What about school?
Oh yeah, Robin's like totally being.
And Robert's Robin.
Yeah.
my boss is gone. We think he's been killed. I mean, wake up. I'm not trying to ruin your life as your dad. I'm not saying you can't go to the party Saturday night. We have to get out of town so they don't come and take us away.
Right. And by the way, Sancho has said that he can't work for the Maxwells anymore because his other clients are saying no.
Right. Sancho has come to Kathleen's window and says, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't work for you guys because." And she's like, "Oh, why is that?" You know, all politely. And well, you're scientists, and you can tell Sancho hates
a good
this.
Guy. Yeah,
yeah, he hates having to say this, but needs to make a living. You know, and it sucks because this whole going out to the woods sequence with the cops and the it's all brilliant. But let's skip back a little bit. It's important that we talk about two things, because it's really important as we go on. One, Donovan comes home to visit his son, who's out in the yard playing with his friend, and they're playing. His friend has the complete Visitor Collector's set action figures.
Yeah, he does.
Because he's the kid in the block who always has all the cool stuff, and you only have like Chewbacca, and he's
got the mothership at home too.
Yeah, he's got the mothership.
Look, it's John and Diana, and these action figures are great. He's got the.
Can I tell you, as a child, how badly I wanted those toys? Like, it was a desperate. Like, are they going to make
real
these
toys? But they really felt real. And Sean's like, "Yeah, Dad, can we have them all?" And he's like, well, we'll see," which means no, you can't have any of them. But he stole a little key from the shuttlecraft that some visitor had dropped on the floor. And he goes, "Well, I do have this," wanting to impress his kid.
Yeah.
"This is from a real shuttlecraft." Wow, really real? And what's Tommy Peterson's character's name? His friend?
Crappy kid actor? I don't know.
Oh my gosh, where is it?
He's like, "Let me see
Tommy.
it." He's like,
Tommy?
Like, later. Is it Timmy?
It is Tommy, right? Isn't
Tommy,
that the character name and the actor name, right?
That would make sense. Anyway, we'll get to him next episode. He'll be the first thing we talk about.
No, Tommy Peterson is played by Josh Brooks. No, Josh. Tommy Peterson plays Josh.
Josh. And Sean. Okay, so Sean is Mike's son. Josh is important. No, Josh, I'm holding it or whatever. They have this great stupid.
That's great. Yeah.
Where it's like, I have something cool for once. You know, you're my friend, but you dick. It's the all implied. And this terrible scene. It's the worst scene in V, the original miniseries. I'll take it though. But it's important. But the worst scene in it is definitely Joanna Kearns, unfortunately, going, "Well, how can I compete with somebody who's traveling with aliens?" And it's just written really weird.
Terrible. It's terrible. Because you start the scene out with Tommy Peterson. Don't get me started. But then the whole Joanna Kearns, it's so useless. It's like it doesn't do anything. I mean, we already can see they're estranged. So
it does something. It does it badly, unfortunately, which most of V we just talked about. Almost all of it avoids this. But it does set up this. They need to have a scene together. We'll talk about next week why they needed to have a scene together, but that had to happen. The kid had to be established. The other kid even had to be established. All this, the normalization of toys of the visitors in the world, like that's an important thing.
You know, all of that is, I'm saying the conversation between Joanna Kearns, I mean, is so poorly written,
right?
Nonsensical,
right?
And that's what I'm saying.
It's conflict for the sake of having conflict in a scene where honestly they could just talk about, they could even be people who were semi-fond of each other.
Yeah.
And it would have been just fine. Like the purpose would have been served.
Agreed.
And you wouldn't
No, but all the other stuff, you need it.
You wouldn't have had that resentful mom who's like, you get to ride on spaceships and I have to do the laundry. Like it's just.
And I've got pizza.
Pizza. It's the only bad scene in V, the miniseries, truly.
It's true.
It's just not great. But we needed to go back and talk about it because the key is not so important. We've used the key, the key is important. The key is important. The toys are important. Tommy Peterson's important. Sean's important. And Mom's important. And we can't just skip right over them. So where are we now in the story?
Well, so
the Maxwells escape.
The Maxwells are thinking about blowing town. but the
I mean, they're going to their home in the mountains or whatever,
right?
Yeah. But they come to a roadblock where they see somebody murdered, and they quickly do a UE and go back into their neighborhood.
Yep.
There's two cops at the roadblock too.
Yeah, one of the cops is like, whatever. I don't care. Bad people are bad people.
Yeah.
You know.
Who actually played a cop in Jason Lives Friday the 13th.
Now they're scientists. Before they were criminals. Whatever.
But it's a great establishing of the other cop, which is important. I mean, it's not. You could have not had to do this, but the fact that they did this little setup is so important for a great moment later.
This is the proof positive that even the minorest characters, of which good cop and bad cop are, they have names, but the names aren't important. Good cop and bad cop have arcs that flow all the way through the thing to the end. It's really important. Good cop is affected by the shooting. This visitor just shot somebody in the back, man. Yeah. An American who wasn't shooting at us. What the hell? And his partner's just like, whatever, man. It's scientist now. You know, you shouldn't have come here if he was a scientist. Like and Robert witnessing this and turning the car around. I mean, the whole thing is like, oh my goodness. So the Maxwells, Grandpa Bernstein allows the Maxwells to hide out in the pool house in the back of the Bernstein residence. And so there's this Anne Frank thing going on. It's kind of weird in the Bernstein household. And, you know, the two parents don't even know about it. Collaborator essentially lives with them, and he's just been armed because he did something good or something. So the whole thing is kind of like, what is going on?
Well, it's an amazing bit of tension. And like you said, in the Anne Frank type way, it's like, you know who lives here, right? You know what's going on. But the most, I think one of my favorite scenes in the whole thing was Leonardo Cimino's speech to his son. It got a little heavy-handed with the violin backing music, but it's powerful.
Yeah, because their reaction is, they're scientists. They can't be here. We can't have this. And Leonardo, who's the soul of the show.
Well, him telling, you know, your mom didn't have a heart attack. This is what happened.
This is what happened.
Wow.
She was murdered when we were trying to escape from Germany. Yeah. And when we were carrying you in a picnic basket or something? A suitcase. We had to put you in a suitcase. And he's like, yeah, Dad, I've heard the story 1,000 times.
You haven't heard the whole thing.
No, you haven't heard the story. This is the story. It is
it's powerful,
really
man.
awesome.
It's like, oh, wow. And you know, again, looking at it, coming back to this after years and see, you know, I want to see Diana and I want to see lizards, but to see something so powerful, it's just, it's unexpected. It's great, but it's like, this is not what I would have signed on for, you know? And certainly as a kid, I probably glossed over it because I didn't know what the hell he was talking about.
The real horrors of what are going on are, you have to take them as space fantasy horrors when you're a kid. Mm-hmm. And that scene with Leonardo, really all of them, Bartlett, the other actors, just the whole thing is so well done.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out here. I'm trying to remember who screws this up for the Maxwells. Can't remember.
I'm gonna guess Robin?
What? No.
Who would have known?
No, Robin wouldn't screw this up too, would she?
Their only hiding place.
Oh, Robin.
And she's bored being in the pool house, so she goes inside.
I don't want to be in the pool house.
She wants to go find Brian, I think.
I want to get me some of the bee. I want to get me some big old bee.
Some of the bee, yeah.
And she bumps into, unfortunately for her, she bumps into Daniel and just admits fully that she's living in his pool house.
Well, your pool house is not
very gross.
He's like, what?
Like, huh?
David Packer as Daniel is ace.
Oh, he's fantastic.
He's quite good.
So then it's dinner time, and Danny has a toast.
Oh man.
To his upcoming wedding.
Yeah, right.
To Robin. I want her.
What does Robin think of this? His dad immediately knows this is all BS.
Yeah, well, she doesn't know yet.
She doesn't know yet, but I want her.
Yeah, I want her.
I am going
and
to
I
have
can get her,
right?
Yeah,
and I can
because he got this champagne for free because he wanted it.
Right. The power has gone to young Daniel's head.
Oh,
who might have otherwise been an okay kid. It's hard to say.
He's got that great. And what's his face? The actor. David Packer. He just gets that great maniacal look behind the eyes, no matter what he's doing. Even when
Cimino stands up and splashes the champagne in his face, and the change from Daniel from smug to it's literally, it's like Joffrey getting slapped. You can watch it 1,000 times on repeat. The shock, the look of his going from being smug to having champagne in his face and being flustered is joyful, but it's followed by this horrific scene at the pool house where it's a hard cut to a bunch of stuff has happened. This has escalated. Daniel's out back by the pool, dragging Robin out of the pool house by the arm against her will. And his father runs and separates them and shoves him in the pool, and Packer comes out of the surface of the water of that pool with his gun pointed at his father's chest, and he is going to kill him.
He's going to do it
right in his face and on his eyes.
Yeah,
it's fast, and this is something that again
sequence really
so well that you again something so deep and troubling is being put here, and all the things that you don't see that, what would have happened if he'd gotten Robin away, like, what could have happened. And knowing now that Daniel's beyond, he's gone. That's it. He's not going to come back from this.
He's going to shoot his dad. And it's Robin, it's Bonnie Bartlett's Daniel. It's this just shriek of terror.
Speaking of which, Bonnie Bartlett, I think, was one of the greatest actors of that generation, and she was a constant on television. But man, she's so good in this. She's so good. I mean, well, not to the big scene, but everything she does, I'm like, I just want to bow down to Bonnie Bartlett. I think she's just an amazing actor.
Fantastic actor. There was supposed to be more with them. Obviously, it's set up by the end of this. But they didn't do a drop-in for Bonnie Bartlett.
Yeah.
She had joined St. Elsewhere by the time the sequel rolled around and just couldn't do it.
I have to apologize.
I agree with you. Just in general, shout out to Bonnie Bartlett. This is a minor role in this, but this powerful moment alone, just this one word she says it is a fully realized performance. The horror and fear, the culmination of what she had to have been worried about as a mother about her kid showing itself to her in front of her eyes.
Okay, I got to stop. Sorry, guys, I got to stop here because I have made a mistake here. I have conflated the toast with, there's stuff that happens between the moment where Danny knows and figures out that the Maxwells are in the thing, and then the dinner. I conflated the two moments.
Well, there's the great the great Brian Robin scene, which we haven't talked about, and there's the
we have Ben, and we're almost to the end of the first episode. The toast actually doesn't happen until episode 2.
Oh, we totally skipped ahead.
I made a pretty big error there. I conflated these two moments.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say. So after Danny, it's the moment of, oh, your pool house is so stuffy, blah, 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 so gross, and he's like, and then we get to Ben. We get to Ben and Juliet, and Ben making the sacrifice.
Yeah, there's an earlier scene where, first of all, Juliet's boyfriend leaves her, or it really feels like, and he's a cool character. Like he's a stockbroker, and he's this sort of what you'd think he'd be. He's this very hunky guy that, but when he thinks the world might be ending, he goes with her to the hospital to volunteer just so they can be together. Like there are these moments he has. And when his business starts to get hurt because he's going out with a scientist, we've really shortchanged Juliet's arc, actually, as we've talked through this story. She's only probably the second most important character in the whole thing. And if not the most, actually, in the end. It almost feels like she leaves him or gives him permission to go away. Like it's this really sad breakup scene where he's not a bad guy, but this isn't what he signed on for. His life coming to an end like this.
Yeah.
There's a great scene where they're meeting inside an empty, blacked out storefront, and it's her and Brad, played by William Russ, a cop whose partner was investigating the visitors who was killed, and Ben, Dr. Ben, who realizes all this stuff is wrong. It's the first resistance meeting, and it's really, really important scene. Mm-hmm. And it's like it's clear in the scene that she's just there because she cares. By the end of the thing, she's setting a schedule, an agenda. She's setting up goals for everybody. She's saying,
we need equipment. We need it. We
need to make contact with other resistance groups. We need to bring people that we know we can trust into these meetings so that we grow as a group. She's taking over the Los Angeles resistance against the visitors. It's an extremely exciting and awesome character building scene for both her and Ben, I think, who are comrades and linked and morally important. And we haven't seen the issues with Elias either, his younger brother, the guy stealing the TV at the beginning. Yeah. Caleb's two sons are his older son, went to college, came up from a poor neighborhood, became a doctor, and his younger son's a cheap TV stealing hood. And the conflict and the just the inherent frustration and disappointment between these people is really, really strong and powerful. As a matter of fact, after that meeting, Ben tries to recruit Elias. He says, you've got to come with me, man. This stuff's right. He says, what are you talking about? I'm not coming. It's just the same old thing, man. It's just different. And you can just tell these brothers, even though there's an intimacy and a real connection between them, are just in totally different places in life. Yeah. And Elias, I always thought, just as a quick sidetrack, we're running out of time, but we are near the end, as Joel said. My dream, Michael, before they went and did this, and we'll talk about that very briefly at some point, but my dream writing project, was to do a remake of V. You and me would be the showrunners on the show. Maybe not the directors, but you know what I mean? We'd write it. And one of the things I was going to do in a modern take on the Taylor brothers was to flip it so that you had the criminal who got caught up with the resistance, and the doctor, who had really everything to lose, couldn't bring himself to do it until it was too late. I thought that would be a neat way to have the same themes, the same dynamic, but flip-flop. I could go to my outline and we could do a third episode on all my ideas for a remake of V, but this was one that was inspired by these two performances, Michael Wright as Elias, and I can't remember the guy who plays Ben.
Richard
Lawson.
Dawson from Poltergeist.
Right. Richard Lawson's a good actor.
My buddies, two of my buddies just shot a movie with him. I was so jealous.
That's a really, really good scene that we also kind of skipped. But you see the strains of relationships throughout this whole thing, and you see you see people repeatedly. Eventually, our heroes snap out of it and do what's necessary. But you see the repeated need to hold on to whatever their established reality is. It's a very human thing that's very sad in Elias's case. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to talk about that because the end of V, episode 1, which we're coming to here, it revolves around that relationship in a very, very key way.
Yep. And so
Juliet's relationship with Ben, certainly, but Elias's as well.
Yeah. Yep. So Juliet and Ben go to get some equipment and to go get some, medical equipment and medical supplies and stuff to try to
hijack them,
and stuff. And
they got some contacts in the hospital because they used to work there after all. And
things go awry.
Trying to set up a lab to study stuff.
Yeah, they need to do research. They got to figure out do the visitors have a weakness? What can we exploit?
They're doing all these sciencey things.
Yep. So while that happens,
the visitors didn't like them.
Yep. So so things go awry, and of course, Ben takes a shot.
Well,
it's a thrilling escape scene.
Yes. It's beautifully shot, and the run down the ramp and all of that, and seeing the futility of Juliet trying to lift the dead weight of Ben. And of course we don't see it, they cut away.
And there's also a moment of sacrifice where he really lets her get a head start.
Yeah.
It's sort of the reason he gets caught behind. So
how that scene wraps up when she, of course, drives to Caleb and Elias's home.
Yep.
I was bawling the other night.
Yeah.
Like this, again, I was not expecting this. Like, it's so...
Caleb's still alive. Juliet has dragged him. She has gotten him here.
And she's been shot. Yeah.
She's been shot in the hip. Next time we see her, she's walking around with a cane. But she's gone from being a secret scientist stealing microscopes to getting shot to being a resistance fighter.
Yeah.
In this scene, that has come to fruition. But yes, she brings Caleb, who's still breathing.
No, Ben.
But
we bring Ben.
Ben, sorry, Ben.
Yeah, Ben. Caleb. Yeah, Caleb's
not here for this scene, which is also tragic. What does Ben say? We've already made our diagnosis, haven't we, doctor? It's harsh. It's such a well-written line.
It's so fascinating to me. At this era of television, you would expect schmaltz.
Right.
This scene does not have schmaltz.
It rides the line. It rides the line. Really,
but it doesn't cross it. It's like... And what makes a lot of the stuff schmaltzy in V is some of the music cues. That's the way it is. But the performances...
We'll talk about V in music soon when we can talk about all of it, but yes.
But the scene is so... I mean, there's so many things happening because now Elias is on board. And
Michael Wright's whole big,
oh my God, that was great.
We don't get Richard Lawson doesn't get a... he doesn't get that depth moment. It's all on Elias, and Elias is going
that
through
monologue.
And Juliet, they don't cut to Lawson's reaction to it either.
Yeah.
They don't cut to Ben while he's dying, as you say, but Juliet watches this whole performance by Elias
because she's trying to interject that he's gone, and you can see her trying to.
Oh my God. See, that would be the thing that I would write. It's good that you guys are would write a remake, because I would be like, Elias, stop.
Shut up. She's going to get out of the car and stumble over to him.
He's gone.
Elias
is working
to his inner child in the scene, and he goes back to the memories of them playing together. He doesn't say it that way, but what he's talking about, because what's tragic about the scene is he's talking about the future. The doc can't die. The doc can't die. This is why the other one can die.
Yeah.
The doc can't. He's the one who made it.
Supposed to be the one. I'm the criminal. I'm the guy who's always. I'm the one who everyone is ashamed of.
Fighting Taylor brothers. Yeah. What are you doing breaking into a hospital? You got me for that kind of thing, man. Yeah. Why didn't you come to me? It's this stream of consciousness, desperation.
It's been so wonderfully set up. Their conversation when Ben tries to get him over to their side, and talking about their differences, and Caleb obviously likes Ben better. All of these things. I mean, it's again so smart, but again not overblown. We didn't get a lot. We get enough to know who these people are, and then this scene has so much
incredible
power.
Performances, and it's hard to believe that. Although if it's true, great. Certainly Kenneth conceived of this moment the way it plays out, but it's hard to believe that Michael Wright didn't make up about half of what he says in the sequence, because it just feels like it feels like that guy knows how to do this in a way that a guy like Kenneth Johnson probably doesn't quite know. And the real collaborative nature of the art it comes together brilliantly.
Kenneth Johnson doesn't write Mamet-esque interruptions of your own stream of thought.
That's what I mean. It feels like that. It feels like this is the thing where...
clear, but maybe to his credit, you can say Kenneth Johnson said, just go, feel it. Feel do it as if and
Ken was on set and behind the camera, and
and you can't discount Faye Grant's reaction shots. I mean, that's some powerful stuff. The look on her face, I mean, is it's a moment where you see her everything grinding. You understand what's she's trying
you
to
see
say
it
something
through the whole thing. Her whole role, especially in this first episode, is reacting to stuff with an expression that's very reserved, and yet there's just always tons of stuff going on with her. She's fantastic in V, and Juliet is obviously crucial to its success.
So then,
but she is more, unlike Mike, who's thrown into the action. She is more of the slow burn. She was just a person when this stuff started happening.
Yeah, there's no throwing into action because the last thing Juliet wants is action.
Right.
She doesn't want any of this. She's,
there's that wonderful scene early on when she finds out that the other doctor she works with has a crush on their boss.
That's a great scene.
And she's all
my God.
She's all like, oh, I didn't know that. Well,
we'll have to make
you and I will go to work on him starting on Monday.
That's a great scene. And that's again, like, that's a moment. We don't need to know who this scientist is that she works with, but wow, what a great scene for both of them. And it makes these people live and breathe because they're not cutting away to something that's technically not necessary.
Right. And thematically, and again, it pounds home the loss of normalness, the loss of the wonderful normal things in their lives, this little bit of matchmaking they're going to do.
And it's a great jump scare, right?
And instead they come back to work on Monday, and the visitors and the FBI are there, and they're finding planted files from a scientific conspiracy, and her whole world is just sort of ripped out from under her.
Yep.
And her response to that, it's not immediately as Polly's response to it, but it's the same response. Eventually you got to stand up. This is not okay. It has to be fought against.
Yep. I think what's interesting about Juliet's trajectory is the fact that like we talked about, that brilliant line of what happens if we don't agree.
Right.
So she's automatically, from a scientific mind, she's doubtful.
She's a
skeptic. Right. Yep. So the fact that even knowing that, so she's not really taking a side yet, but then to see her kind of reluctantly take this leadership position when she doesn't have the evidence at this point to back anything up to make a proper decision. I think that's something that's so interesting about why she's so torn in so many things. She obviously starts to learn more, and she doesn't know at this point that they're lizards until Mike comes in and tells her, but I think that's what makes Juliet so rich. There's a lot of crap going on. And like you said, you see it in Faye Grant's performance. It's just always running around in her head. I think she's an underrated actor, and I wish she would have had bigger opportunities.
Right, because and she's been in some high-profile movies and stuff. Yeah. The Hollywood didn't know what to do with her. V is really, the earlier the better in general when it comes to V. But V is really a worthy role for her, and she's just fantastic in it. Mm-hmm. She's just a kid. That kid, he says. Kid.
Yeah. So so we have the sadness.
That's next week, but
we have the sadness of Ben dying. Elias is going through some stuff, but he's angry and he's getting about. And Juliet she's a little got some hip issues.
Got a burn.
And but then we cut back.
And the pain she exhibits when being shot is.
And we get.
I love it.
And we go back and we get back to our friendly visitor posters. The friendly visitor posters, some kids are hanging out and they're spray painting some mustaches and some funny.
They're going with the goggles one of them has.
No.
All the classics.
No, I am Abraham. And you know what you do? You get the old. And that
I just got goosebumps.
It's V. Or victory.
Victory. Understand? Tell your friends.
And by the way, Ruth is with him now.
Ruth gets it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ruth comes around.
And then we fade out to credits on episode 1.
It's like just talking about it, I get goosebumps. This thing, it's seriously, this show is so ingrained in who I am. It's
clear that each episode is going to be its own episode of the movie show with Joel and Ryan. So we're talking about a 5-episode arc now.
Buckle up, everybody!
Oh, mercy!
And it's frustrating. Although it is a deep dive, we call them deep dives for a reason, because we do go through them in order and we talk about every moment. But we're so excited about this. It is exciting to talk about. It was exciting just to watch it. And we hope that we're providing some insights as we go. But even if we're not, maybe it's fun to spend a couple hours a week with some guys who really are super enthusiastic about what they're talking about. Hopefully that's infectious, because
we hope so. We hope
he is special. It pushes all the buttons. Like Michael said, the nostalgia button big time, but so much more than that. It has grown as we have grown, and it's come with us in a way. And so when you watch it now, you see something different. It's very special.
Agreed.
And we thank Kenneth for that and everybody else, and we'll be back at it next week.
Yeah, we're going to be back at it next week with episode 2, the second night of V the original miniseries.
Okay.
And until then, boy, we are so glad you could join us. The friends are here. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. Remember, all views and opinions represented in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the speaker and do not represent those people, institutions, or organizations that the speaker may or may not be associated with, unless explicitly stated. None of these views and opinions were intended to malign or deceive. And now, here's the producers, circa 1982, to play us out.